I love weddings. I really love them. I'm a hopeless romantic who swoons and cries, and I could probably get my bag packed in 20 minutes for a shotgun Vegas wedding. I think that you can't really talk about marriage without talking about what comes first and what clouds people's head and what a lot of people basically just want, which is, of course, the wedding. I think that celebrations of love are really, really super important, and I think that getting everyone together and to, you know, look fabulous and revel in your sickening happiness is a really fun rite of passage. I don't think it should necessarily be restricted to only monogamous sexual two-person partnerships. Like, I would like to marry all of my friends. I want them all to be in my life forever and ever, and I think that would be great. Weddings provide this fixed moment in time when you can look at whoever it is you're with and just sort of know for that moment at least that, you know, they've got your back, and that's really comforting. Like, I'm not too keen on the whole us against the world idealisation at the moment, which is like, if you're committed to someone then you won't need your friends or family, because obviously they are like so super important. I'm looking really sternly at like Cheryl Cole and the pop industry for spreading this bullshit, but you know, hey. Moving on from, you know, the fun wedding bit and onto like the long-term kind of day-to-day messy bit, it's really, really important to remember that actually long-term marriage for many people is about that reliable security, which is something that's often overlooked by like young middle-class queers who just say that it's all about like getting a privileged stance in society. If your health is going, or if you're in a really financially unstable situation, or maybe you really need to stay in the country for your personal safety, like we've just seen 4 men hung for sodomy in Iran, and like loads of LGBTQ refugees are like deported despite, you know, their lives being threatened elsewhere. Should monogamous sexual relationships be privileged over everyone else? Like, of course not. Ideally would live in a world where people don't need to bind themselves to someone else in order to make sure that their affairs are taken care of fairly when, you know, after they've died. You know, that we wouldn't have families who have thrown out their children then come in and take up all of their, you know, money and resources and accumulated wealth away from like the partner who they've spent their life with after death, like, because that's hideous. You know, ideally that wouldn't happen. Ideally we wouldn't have borders and people wouldn't have to tie themselves into relationships just to sort of make sure that they don't get killed elsewhere and sent to like their death by fucking states. I guess I just kind of wanted to remind people that it's not just a privileged few trying to conform to this heteronormative mould who are just trying to seek marriage. For some people it's a matter of like securing themselves and their loved ones, and that's really, really important. It's something to remember. Like, when we're fighting for marriage equality, we are fighting for people's right to, you know, just make sure that they're secure, which is a pretty big thing. So finally, like, let's talk about those people who do wish to assimilate themselves into like this heteronormative society and have their relationship vetted by the state, and that's okay. Like, I think it's a bit of a generation thing as well as a religion thing. Like, a lot of older people do feel like you have to be married just because they feel like that's what they've always wanted. Like, some people do have the dream of meeting the one and settling down and having kids and, you know, getting a dog in a caravan in Cardiff or wherever and just sort of going on holiday to the same place every single year until they die, and that's their idea of heaven, and that's just what they want. And you know what, who the fuck am I to stop them? Who is anyone to stop them doing that? However, like, when we're talking about like that sort of traditional values marriage, which I guess a lot of sort of straight conservative Christian people think of that sort of thing when they think of, you know, gay marriage, you start to get like this really, really interesting kind of intersection of sexism and homophobia in society. I noticed that whenever you see a picture of same-sex marriage in like the paper or online with a positive story attached to it, it'll nearly always be of a lesbian couple, white of course, one partner wearing a tux, the other partner, you know, stunningly femme, in like the full white gown. Now this is very important because lesbians are always misrepresented, or nearly always misrepresented, as being really inoffensive all the fucking time. Men loving men, that's a political statement. Women loving women, that's hot, you know, that's cozy, that's just, you know, ugh. And it's got this horrible like historical element to it as well, because like when sodomy, oh god, I hate that word, when that was banned in England, lesbian relationships were allowed to go on because in the minds of the, you know, legislators, women were so sexually passive that put two in a room together and nothing would happen sexually. They just couldn't find any sexual attraction to each other because women were just like moral Puritans. Yeah. They had it so wrong. So this also kind of plays into the idea of that if there are two people of the same gender getting married, then there must be a dominant person and a submissive person, and the dominant person will nearly always be the more masculine person, you know, who wears the trousers, who's going to wear the tux at the wedding, you know, who's the bride, who's the groom. It's like this clusterfuck of sexism and homophobia which permeates a lot of like LGBTQ couples, not just those seeking to get married, and it's something that we need to be like really conscious of when we're fighting for marriage equality. Just to make sure that idea of having, you know, the one and a monogamous partner, you know, that bit isn't necessarily heteronormative. The bit that's heteronormative is all of the shit that gets piled onto it, and I think we need to like kind of pull those two apart a little bit, I think. Yeah, so that's my say, really. I don't think that the current sort of system of marriage and the institution of marriage is a particularly, well, certainly not a fair one, and it's kind of not a terribly great structure, but I don't think we should just kind of like completely wipe it out full stop, really, is what I think. Sorry I didn't get a video up on Tuesday. I will see you on Tuesday, talking about something else. I'm not entirely sure what at this moment in time, but anyway, yeah, see you soon. Have a lovely rest of your weekend.